What's going on, everybody? We are live this morning with a little impromptu. It's not impromptu. We've gotten away from it, but Unicorn Finders Live. I am going to share this with my group now. But y'all, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. Listen, this topic, add us comments. This topic that Dan and I are going to talk about. I've gotten a lot of DMs and a lot of comments about how to define your worth in today's market. And Dan chimed in on one of my LinkedIn posts. And so we thought it was just going to be a great topic. So Dan, thanks for joining, man. Our other person, Jake, is doing things, but Dan and I want to bring you value today. So Dan, first off, what's the weather in Tampa, big dog?
Dude, we've had some of the best weather I ever remember in the month of May. It's 82 degrees right now. Let's see, humidity is very, very low. It's like 40% right now, which for Tampa is incredible. Dude, I love it, man. We're living our best lives right here.
That's awesome. Alex, hello. I know you're trying to FaceTime me. I'm busy. Please stop FaceTiming me. Brandon, what's going on? It's good to see you. Keyshore, what's going on? So Dan, I want to go ahead. I want to go and dive in. Right now. So I talk about it a lot. But I want you to give a quick peel behind the onion about what you're seeing in the job market right now in Tampa, but also what you're seeing in the country right now, because it's lit, as the kids say, but I want you to talk about it and kind of what you're seeing, because people are tired of hearing me talk about it.
Yeah, no, the market's unbelievably hot, right? I mean, we've talked about kind of the double-edged sword, and you and I have. You have companies that for a very long time, especially in Tampa, where we were kind of anti-remote for a long time, that had the pool of people here, and they looked and said, hey, this is our pool, right? And companies would lowball, or companies would say, hey, this is the best that we have to offer, or like, where else are you going to go? Here's what we can offer, right? So like the double-edged sword is that like now companies can expand, and it also like stunted some of our growth, especially in bringing on new tech and everything else. Right. But now, like the double-edged sword, like I said, is now we can start to look out of Tampa, right? We can look into other states, other areas that, we can bring them in and they can come work for us. We can maybe advance tech, or, maybe we can really start to open up who we are as a company. On the opposite end of that is all of those companies that for a really, 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 long time had this grip on the Tampa market are now all of a sudden realizing, hey, companies from Atlanta, Nashville, Raleigh, Austin, Phoenix, New York, Chicago, wherever, are now starting to come and say, hey, instead of us paying, somebody maybe $130,000 in Chicago, we can pay you $110,000, which is far more than the $90,000 you were making before. Wow. And now companies are like, what's happening to our people, right?
So, and again, Matthew, yes, and exactly what Dan said. I mean, it's kind of flipped on its head. And so the question I posted yesterday on LinkedIn that I had a really good response with is I had a company lowball candidate, $10,000 to $15,000. Dan had a really good comment about finding your worth. What is your worth? What, like, the company's thoughts about that candidate, and then obviously what that candidate thinks about themselves. And so I want to dive in today about, as a job seeker, and also from a hiring perspective too, is what is that worth, right? And it gets weird on a contracting basis, right? If you contract with Dan, if you contract with myself, we pay you we pay you an hourly rate, and that's it, right? It's very cut and dry. Obviously, there's a lot involved from a direct hire side of things. So Dan, let's talk about on the candidate side first. How should candidates, one, evaluate themselves and where they're at in the market right now, but also two, just like not take it personally, but also know their worth? Like, give some color.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I'm going to probably go off in 17 different directions. So you might have to guide me back to where we need to go. I think when you look at what your value is, of where you're at now and what you might be looking for, is that your value to yourself and your value to a potential employer are not always the same. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, right? If you say, hey, I think that I'm worth X, right? Like maybe you have experience in pharmacy benefit Medicare or pharmacy benefit management, Medicare Part C, Part D, and you're a BSA and you're kicking butt in that field, and somebody's paying you $100,000. And I have a company over here that wants you to have that product owner, experience that you got in that, or BSA experience, whatever, and you got in that role. But maybe we're in, I don't know, we've created an app for, a lawn care service, right? Your experience might be very different in terms of what you can bring to the table, right? It might not just be, hey, you have 6 years of experience. Maybe your experience doesn't necessarily translate over here. So maybe your role, if you were to go to another PBM firm, might be, $5,000 or $10,000 more. But maybe if you can't bring that experience and I need to teach you about, lawn care and different types of trees and stuff like that, like maybe we're not 100% aligned. Doesn't mean that you can't learn and grow, but it also means like, hey, just because you have a certain amount of experience at a certain job that maybe you've been there for 10 or 15 years, that doesn't necessarily mean it translates 100% over to my opportunity. And I don't want you to be offended, by that either.
Right. And so we got a few people. Andrew goes, your worth is a sum total of your life experiences, is immutable, irreplaceable, singular. Well, yes, 100% agree with you. Yeah, here's the issue that I have with this, Andrew. You are correct. You are not wrong. However, your worth right now is primarily in the company's eyes, right? And so Dan, here's my next question that I want to ask is, when candidates go, I know my worth, I know I'm worth this, I'm not wavering. What would you say to those candidates, especially when it comes to the worth right now? While it is a candidate-driven market, at the end of the day, your worth is defined by the company that you're interviewing with.
Right. Worth and salary aren't the same, right? And I responded, sorry, I'm clicking my mouse. That's that noise. I responded because somebody responded back to you.
It was
Julian Black. And I know he deleted it. That's how good it was. So he said something about making an impact, and that companies that you can make an impact for are going to pay you money to make an impact. And I responded, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing, right? Just because a company is willing to pay you more doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a bigger impact, right? Like, you can make an impact for the company or you can make an impact for yourself. And you have to look at that as a very different thing. I might say, hey, Taylor, I'll pay you, maybe you have experience in COBOL, right? I'll pay you $110,000 a year to go back to being a COBOL developer, right? Or a web forms developer. That's kind of our theme, right? Or I can say, hey, I'll pay you $100,000 and you have a little bit of experience and a little bit of React or a little bit of Vue.js or whatever it is. And in 2 years, maybe you're worth $130,000, $140,000, but I might have come in, at a lesser amount right away. Or I might be throwing you into a fire where it really sucks to work here, right? Like, the companies that pay a lot of money, I found, are one of two companies that are progressive, know the market, or companies that really suck. And the only way that they can keep them is by paying them a lot of money. So know what you're looking for more so than just what that specific dollar amount is.
Well, yeah. And I think too, you make such a good point, because so I had a candidate pre-COVID, where he is a little bit more senior in his career. Let's say that. Right. And he has been in the .NET world. And most of his .NET is like .NET MVC, not a ton of .NET Core, not a ton of Azure, some Angular, but mainly Angular 1.x, right? And we're getting a little nerdy here, but he got an offer that was about $10,000 to $15,000 less than he typically would take. And he told me, and we talked about, your worth, not right now, but your worth 5 years from now. And he took this job because he knew if he got into this ecosystem, it was like .NET Core, heavy Azure, React, like, serverless, blah, 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 whatever. He knew that in 5 years, he would be worth probably 30, 40, 50 grand more down the road. And so I want to tell candidates that if you're watching this right now, is that you need to think very big picture when it comes to the job search and offers. I think a lot of times candidates get so focused with X's and O's in front of them, which is great, right? I preach on it. If you follow me, you see it. You need to know what you're worth, base, bonus, PTO, HSA. I think Dan and I and Jake have even talked about all of that you need to look for on a past episode of Unicorn Finders. So I understand that, but you have to think of long term. Dan, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And that's where I think we get so focused on, not we, but a lot of people get so focused on kind of the clickbait content that exists on LinkedIn that says, hey, if you don't, if a company lowballs you, they hate you, right? Or if you say, I demand X salary and you're not willing to pay me X salary, you're, offensive to me. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's necessarily the case. You have to think about it. And I'm not taking the company's side here. I'm not taking any side. I'm just trying to offer some perspective.
Yeah.
Is that just because you think that your dollar amount, right? And Matthew Bell put something in there that your net worth doesn't equal your self-worth, which I think is super important. I think that that's where it's important for you to understand, what are you looking for out of a job? If it's just dollars, are you okay with going to a place that may overwork you or may not be where you want to be in 3, 5, 7 years from now? And that's a analysis that you're going to have to personally have. But think about it from a company's perspective. If you don't hit all of the things that I'm looking for, maybe that, you're the role of the person that you're replacing, I may not give you that because there is going to be a learning curve. There is things that we need to do to get you up to speed to potentially get you into that role that would be valued at X. And I say this all the time, and I tell people, just because you think that you're worth something from a dollar's perspective, and this has nothing to do with like personal, like self-validation and self-worth, has everything to do with like a dollar worth, is then go find a company that's willing to give that to you, but don't miss the forest through the trees because you're so focused on a specific dollar amount. Yeah. And instead of, where can this take me? What's my satisfaction? How happy am I going to be? What's the team like?
Yep.
Because to be honest with you, sometimes we chase a couple more $1,000s a year, and you're like, damn, that's a couple $1,000 after taxes and everything else. You're talking about $40, $50, $60 a week. Like, is your life satisfaction worth that little, right?
A lot of comments have come in. Let's see here. Andrew, by which I mean not every job will fit perfectly, but it's definitely at least one. Yeah, absolutely. Nathan.
Hold on, Taylor, before you say that, you only need one, right? Like, that's all you need, right? It's everybody's like, how many jobs can I get out of it? You only need one to buy into that perspective and one to buy into you, right? It's like getting married. For sometimes people it's two, right? But or three. But you only need that one company or that one person to take a shot on you.
Absolutely. Nathan goes, yes, not all of your experiences are valuable to me as a hiring manager. Nathan is a hiring manager here in Nashville, works for N Contracts. They are hiring. Nathan won't use us because he's got to use HR first, which I get it. Nathan, I'm putting you on blast. But go work for Nathan. If you are watching this and you're in the .NET space, hit up Nathan and his team. They're fantastic, especially not as much as your current job might value it. Expecting a raise every time you change jobs is a cancer in the market. So there's a lot to unpack here. I want to talk about raises with bouncing around. While Nathan makes a very good point, by the way, StreamYard needs to be able to adjust StreamYard, if you're watching this.
Yeah, I agree. Just kind of shrink it a little bit.
Expecting a raise every time. Yeah, how cool would it be if you could just press it down? Expecting a raise every time you change jobs is a case mark. You're right, Nathan, but here's the deal. I don't see very few companies actually have raises in place to compensate their employees. So employees have to go out and move.
Mm-hmm. That's a killer point right there, Taylor. If we started compensating people for the growth and the value that they bring to the company as they continue to grow and learn through the organization, people wouldn't feel like they have to bounce around. I think I saw a stat that said the average raise is just a little over 3 or a little bit over 4% per year. Company, year over year at the same company, it's about 12% to take a move. So I don't blame people because we do a really poor job, because it's once they're here, right? Like, I saw somebody really ridiculous comment the other day. They're like, the reason we don't post our salaries in our job descriptions is because we're paying these people more than the people that are on the team now. We don't want people to come to us and say something. I was like, I beg your pardon? You just found an inherent flaw in your company. Go take some self
Listen, I know I talk about Gary Vee. Like my wife basically said, like, if you would marry Gary Vee, you probably would. I'll also say this. I talked to a CTO yesterday. That was pretty tight. And he's going to be on Guidance Counselor. So I'm very excited about that. But Chris Choice was his name. But basically, if Gary Vee talks about this, if you have to hide something, there is something that is wrong. Right now, there's a whole nother life thing about there, and we will not get there on this podcast, but let's just keep it HR and kind of job related side of things. When it comes to HR, when it comes to hiding salaries, if you have to hide salaries, you are doing something wrong within your organization. Right now, would I say put all your people on blast? No, but if you're scared to put salaries because you're scared of what other people are making, maybe you need to adjust their salaries. Just saying. Let's move on. Let's see here. LinkedIn user. Thank you for commenting, LinkedIn user. I appreciate it. But I can't see your face. Benefit packages, salary, working conditions, growth potential, company culture, job expectations, equal career happiness. I know once Dan gets back from speaking to whoever he needs to speak to, this is going to be big, right? Benefit package, salary, working conditions, growth potential, company culture, job expectations, equal career happiness. There's more in here. Company culture, job expectations, growth potential. That's important. If you notice, whoever put this LinkedIn user, props to you. Only one part of it is actually monetary, and that's benefits package. Right? Everything else is...
And salary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, salary. Sorry. Yeah. So only two of the, 5 things you put?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that.
Yep.
See here, Gene goes, I feel like companies don't look at a person's potential, particularly when a person brings substantial life work experiences to the table. Those companies seem happy just finding someone who can immediately fill a role. Listen, shit. I mean, this is a whole nother
professional platform, Taylor.
Oh, sorry. This is a whole nother conversation. Dan, I don't know if you had any quick thoughts on this.
No, I say the reason, a shout out to Gary Vee for hiring React developers right now. But no, I mean, that's true. I think the problem, Gene, and I could talk about this forever, and I talked about it on a podcast I was on last Friday, is the reason companies don't look at a person's potential is because we have a disconnect between what we say we're looking for in hiring as a company and what we actually do and hire as a company. And the biggest reason is I think that there's often a disconnect between hiring managers and the people that are making the hiring, or the hiring decision makers, and those that are talking about hiring strategy. And what I say by that is for most hiring managers, they're on project-based deadlines where they need to get something done in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever, a year. And unless they can plug and play somebody in, now they're starting to worry about, well, if this person doesn't come in and contribute right away and we fall behind on this project, what do we do? Is my job on the line? Or they go and say, hey, I'm just going to go hire somebody that's already done this before. Right? It's the companies that realize that we need to build in a strategy where we're hiring entry-level folks, where we're hiring folks that are switching careers that maybe don't bring that experience to the table, or where we're actually creating a plan where we can grow and train people. But it sounds so much cooler when you stand on a stage at like a university and says, we want to hire for potential and we want to hire entry-level grads. And then they go and they go to their website and they see entry-level job, like 3 years of experience, or like, hey, we want to hire an entry-level person, but you know what? Like a mid-level person came in and can do this job like right away. So like, we're just going to go with that because my job's on the line. It's like a massive, massive, massive disconnect between reality and like what happens in like the speaking circuit.
Right. And I think this is what we talked about. This is what we talked about. And we'll wrap up here in the next few minutes. But this is what Jake, Dan, and I talked about. I think one of our recent ones is about like companies right now. Everyone's looking for the seniors. Companies need to take a week off.
Yeah.
And like reevaluate their needs from a personnel perspective and shift a ton of responsibilities around and hire junior developers. But we're getting a little off topic with how this.
Well, no, but you make a really good point. And Robert Keever down there at the bottom said something important. And Robert, I 100% agree. And I don't even think that it's always hiring managers' faults. I think it is the way that we do business and the lack of direction that we normally set. I'll put some of that blame on hiring managers. I'll put some of that blame on companies from a corporate strategy, and I'll put some of that in that we think of work in such rigid constraints that everything is on a timeline of when it needs to get done, right? Like we literally have positions called project managers that exist to keep every project moving, right? And with that, we're like, oh, hey, what if this person needs 6 months to ramp up? It's like, perfect. Like, what if they're here in 4.5 years and they're your best business analyst, but you got so focused on hiring that person that can come in today, and you're just going to get constantly stuck in this same rigid structure rather than actually trying to plan for our company growing, right? And if you're so focused on today, not focused on tomorrow as a company, you're going to fail. You're absolutely going to fail.
I'll preach. We'll wrap it up here. Dan, final thought for people who are struggling right now to find their worth in the market or understanding their worth, just a tangible piece of advice, and then I'll say something and then we'll end it.
Yeah, I would say number one, do research, right? Know what jobs in your area are paying. Ask recruiters to help. Ask, folks that are in the market, join, Discord or Slack channels, do that kind of stuff. Ask, what's out there. Start searching in your area for jobs. Know about what people are making. Number two is connect. I talked to a young lady this morning that made a change from marketing over to being a UX like product designer, and she went through like a code camp thing, and she got a really cool job with a really big company. And I was like, well, how'd you get that job? She's like, I just reached out to people on LinkedIn. I started talking. I gave, I asked for advice. I did free projects, and boom, she got a job with they're probably a Fortune 20 company, right? So doing things like that. And then being okay. And I know that this isn't okay. Not everybody has this ability. Being okay to say no, to find what checks the boxes that you're looking for. Actually, before that, know what you're looking for in a company. Create a checklist of what those companies are. What are the non-negotiables that you have? Start checking boxes. And if something isn't a fit, don't feel like you have to take it just because it pays a little bit more or because it's a little bit closer to home. Think about everything else that goes into what a job and a career looks like.
I love that. And again, for my thing, if you're still watching this, again, thank you for watching 22 minutes through. But my thing is take on work, gain experience, network. Like networking is the social currency of today's world, right? I've posted about this. Forget NFTs, forget blockchain, forget crypto. Networking is your social currency. You will only go as far as your network. So double down your network, double down like everybody who commented today, right? Randy, Matthew, Andrew, LinkedIn user, Gene, Nathan, Andrew, Brandon, Alex, right? Like all of y'all, like that is networking. Commenting and liking and engaging with people online is networking. Do that. And if you double down and stay consistent with that 30, 60, 90 days, I think you're going to be very surprised with how everything turns out.
And also really try to get feedback or get advice from a variety of different people. Don't just live in an echo chamber. A lot of times we like to live in a world where we know what we want to hear and we know the answer that we're seeking. So we're going to follow that kind of information. Try to be as well-rounded as you can. There's a lot of false and fake and overly aggressive behavior on LinkedIn towards certain industries and things of that nature. Be well-rounded, learn the market, learn your city, connect with people, challenge yourself to get better, challenge yourself to consume and grow, and don't let yourself get down. Take time away, from your computer, take time away from your job search. It's okay to focus on yourself and focus on things that are going to make you happy, because at the end of the day, it's a job, and I know it's a means to an end, but it's a job, and it's not worth some of the stress we put it through.
I love it. Awesome. Well, again, y'all, thanks for tuning in to a fun version of the Unicorn Finders today. We appreciate the time. Tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Central, Emma from Spotify, she wrote a book on decoding the technical interview. You need to be there. So if you haven't RSVP'd, go to our LinkedIn page, check it out, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace, y'all.